Rural Americans deserve access to the best of what our nation has to offer, especially healthcare. Across every state and every community, America's rural hospitals are the first line of defense, protecting our families, neighbors, and loved ones. No matter where you live, hospital care doesn't clock out. They're there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Each year, America's over 5,000 hospitals care for millions of patients, providing 24/7 emergency care, delivering babies, cancer treatments, and other life-saving care that patients rely on. Behind every one of those patients are doctors, nurses, and caregivers working tirelessly to keep people healthy and safe. Hospitals are our community's lifelines. They employ our neighbors and keep our families healthy. But now, some in Congress are threatening access to care. Tell Congress, protect patient care to keep America strong. Don't cut rural health care.
I didn't think the pain from the shingles rash would affect simple, everyday tasks like bathing, getting dressed, or even walking around. I was wrong. Though not everyone at risk will develop it, 99% of people over the age of 50 already have the virus that causes shingles, and it could reactivate at any time. I developed it, and the blistering rash lasted for weeks. Don't learn the hard way, like I did. Talk to your doctor or pharmacist today. Sponsored by GSK.
The Roger Stone Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back. Joining me now is a man for whom I have both enormous respect and affection. General Michael Flynn not only served this nation as President Trump's first national security advisor, but he also served as the head of the Defense Intelligence Agency, specifically served as a Central Command J2 head of intelligence in Afghanistan and head of intelligence for all special operations in the Middle East during the wars in both Iraq and Afghanistan. Deeply involved in planning and operations for multiple Iranian contingencies. There's no one I respect more. There's no one whose views I'm more anxious to hear than General Michael Flynn. General Flynn, welcome to the Roger Stone Show.
Roger, thanks for having me, and I appreciate it. And boy, what a moment in history that the world is living through right now with what we're seeing. And if I can, for the audience, I was listening to your show this afternoon here, in this really monumentally historic time. One of the big differences, and I have my opinions about war, and I always said I'm anti-stupid wars, right? And so, we can argue about vital national security interests, whether or not that, this meets all those conditions, and are we doing enough in the homeland? But I think at this stage, the people of this country, of the United States of America, have to understand that we are fully engaged in a very, very historic, conflict, war, however you want to describe it. And one of the big differences, and as we are seeing this play out, as we've seen President Trump during his first administration, when he took military action, and with how he conducted the operation down in Venezuela, the one clear thing about President Donald J. Trump is his decisiveness and his message sending and his unleashing of the full weight of America's power, not just military, which has been very clearly put to the task here, and everybody is seeing that. It's not just the U.S. military, but it's also in our reliance on the various partners and alliances that we have in the Middle East, and frankly elsewhere around the world. But the decisive action that, and the way that Trump is leveraging military, economic, financial, diplomatic elements of power is really a sight to behold. And like it or not, folks, agree or not, we are engaged. And now what we have to cheer for is we have to cheer for victory. And we have to cheer for a quick, decisive victory that gets us back in a place where we can continue to do the things that I know that President Trump wants to do right here in the United States of America. But we can't have, and And I appreciate the bio there at the beginning. I mean, I've spent, a third, maybe half of my career in and out of the Middle East and in and out of the various headquarters in our militaries, up to and including the Department of Defense level or Department of War level. In these types of planning sessions and these types of arguments, debates about whether or not we're going to do something, even at the political level. And once that decision is made, and the President of the United States makes that, and we now have clear objectives as to what it is that we're trying to achieve, what you want out of the President is you want a level of decisiveness, and I can't overstate that, because Trump doesn't want this. He gave every opportunity for the Iranian regime, to make the right decisions, to basically exercise a level of prudence that they had never exercised with people like Obama, presidents like Obama, and clearly Joe Biden, and frankly even other Republican and Democratic presidents over the last 40 years, let's say, since going back, even certainly when they took over in 1979. One thing that people tend to forget is under Reagan, this was early on in the regime's, dictatorial, tyrannical rule of frankly, most of the Middle East. But one of the things that Reagan did, and people tend to forget this, they threatened the ability to be able to conduct maritime operations inside the Persian Gulf. And Reagan basically said, if you threaten us one more time, I'll have an answer for you. And they did. And 24 hours later, Reagan destroyed half of the Iranian Navy at that time. This was like in the mid-80 time frame. He destroyed half of it, and he destroyed it in one day. So that was back in the 80s under Reagan, where Reagan was also a very decisive guy when it came to certain tasks that he felt were in the vital national security interests of the United States of America. And people go, because I've seen online about how, we can do things on our own. We can create, we have enough energy resources here in the United States of America. We don't have to rely on what's going on in the Gulf. What people tend to forget is that the lines of communications globally, the maritime, especially the maritime lines of communications globally, are something that we pay very close attention to, and we are very responsive to making sure that there is a free flow of commerce globally. Now, whether or not people like that, the United States of America has been part and parcel to leading that effort for many, many decades now. And one of those critical lines of communications, maritime communications and energy flows comes out of the Persian Gulf. And it's not just what goes to China or what goes to parts of the world over there. It's what comes out of there and goes to the rest of the world, to include Africa, Europe, South America. So, is this about economic strength? Is this about making sure that there is a stability, a global stability? You're damn right it is, folks. And these are the kinds of things, these are the kinds of decisions, certainly the kinds of conversations that I guarantee that during the national security meetings that Trump had leading up to this particular operation, he was asking those types of questions and he was getting those types of answers. He did not weigh into this willy-nilly or because somebody said, and because people are whining about, Israel, that the Israelis have, hoodwinked us into this. No, this is a regime that has killed thousands of American soldiers. Over 600 were killed in Iraq. Remember I think it was the 283 in October of 1983 Marines that were killed in the Beirut bombing. We have the Khobar Towers. I mean, the Iranian regime has been a horrible blister in the rear end of the world, and certainly that particular region. And we just can't have it anymore. These people were going to the point where they are so dangerous. Now, I'll stop there for a second to see if you have any questions, because I want to kind of talk about what capabilities the Iranians still may have.
Yeah, that was where I was going to go. Look, Iran's regime has openly called for death to America while orchestrating attacks on us. As you mentioned, the 79 hostage crisis, the attack on the Beirut Marine Barracks, the attack on the USS Cole, the maiming and killing of U.S. troops in Iraq. These are bad actors, and they were playing for time, and Trump called their bluff. But that was my exact question. How much of their control structure, this is a brutal regime, a brutal autocratic police state regime, how much of that is still intact with the death of the supreme leader and, as reported, 40 top leaders?
Yeah, so people need to understand that, this regime has been in office, so to speak, in charge for decades. So they plan for these types of contingencies because there have been many times in the past where the American presidents have threatened, or certainly our military operations in Afghanistan and Iraq for many, many years. They always felt threatened. So they actually plan for many, many different contingencies. So I don't want people to think that this thing is going to end, in 24 hours and everybody's going to go, okay, time to go home. The Iranian regime has contingencies. They have forces. They still have a large inventory of missiles, and we're seeing them continue to be used. We're seeing drones be used in the region. Certainly, I think that now we're talking about upwards of about 12 different countries have experienced some type of attack. I am very worried about what we just saw down in Austin, Texas, in the last 24 hours or so. This retaliatory type attacks here in the homeland by these sleeper cells. I'm very worried about that, very concerned. We'll see how that plays out. I think that the situation in Austin is tragic, and it's a signal or a sign of what might come here in the U.S. But the battlefield today, and I think the bigger answer to this is that the battlefield today is not just a response by Iran into Israel or into Saudi Arabia or into one of the regional partners. The response, that the battlefield today is a global battlefield. That means that we could and should expect responses from supporting terrorist elements of the Iranian regime anywhere in the world. And I think we saw some of that, just an inkling of it in Austin, Texas, just here in the last 24 hours. But the depth chart for Iran is deep. This is a country 4 times the size. I want to say this again. It's 4 times the size of California. It has 90 million people. There are an awful lot of people in various elements. They have not only the RGC, which is their sort of special military, and it's a large force, but they also have the Iranian army. They have the Iranian navy. These are other more conventional forces. They also have what's called the Basij element, which is it's sort of a militia, a quasi-militia military unit. There are large numbers of them, and they have been operating and fighting back against the protesters in Iran. So there's a depth chart in Iran that is significant, and the people at U.S. Central Command and with supporting capabilities, I'm certain, out of Europe and elsewhere in the region, are going to have their hands full here, trying to go after so many targets. So many types of enemy targets that they have. I mean, we've already seen the president responded to some of the naval engagements in the Persian Gulf. And one of the things that we've got to make sure that we keep these Straits of Hormuz open. Even though if it were to be shut down, I know that the Iranians have threatened it. If it were to be shut down, the U.S. Navy could open up those straits there very, very quickly. I do worry about other critical lines of maritime communication, like the Suez, and it looks like the Egyptians, President al-Sisi, looks like he is supporting us, which is a good thing because the Suez Canal is a very, very vital waterway coming out of the Mediterranean from Europe and into the Red Sea. So the geography matters. The depth chart of the Iranian military matters. The depth chart of the Iranian political leadership matters, and they plan for these types of things. People need to know that. Let me throw out a name for many of our veterans that are listening to your show that fought in Iraq. The name Muqtada al-Sadr. Muqtada al-Sadr. He's a quasi imam, but we had battles in what was called Sadr City in Iraq. A good friend of mine was killed in Iraq in that particular, the first battle in Sadr City. Well, Muqtada al-Sadr is hugely pro-Iranian, and he is in charge of about the southern half of Iraq. So we have to also pay very, very close attention to not just, specifically Tehran or some of these cities that are being hit by our great military. We also have to pay attention to the partners that are there in the region. Iraq is supposed to be a partner of ours, but yet there's people inside of Iraq that are not, and I just mentioned one. Additionally, you have Afghanistan, and of course, Afghanistan and Pakistan. This past week, they are in a quasi-conventional fight. The Pakistanis have been doing bombing runs into Kabul.
General Flynn, we're going to have to take a quick break, and we'll be back with more of my good friend General Michael Flynn. Don't go away. And we're back with General Michael Flynn to get his unique perspective on events in Iran. General Flynn, the most encouraging thing today, of course, is that the wounded but not dead regime in Iran has threatened to close the Straits of Hormuz, which would have an immediate impact on world oil prices. But according to General Flynn, the U.S. Navy could reopen it relatively easily. It sounds like you think that the naval capability of the mullahs may not be so strong.
Yeah, it's not that strong, and it's easily contained based on where they operate from. So, our Fifth Fleet there, which is our naval fleet in the Central Command area of responsibility, is very, very powerful. And President Trump added a couple more tools to their kit bag, so to speak. One of the things I want people to understand is that, in the 20 years of war, essentially, that I was part of in Iraq, Afghanistan, and elsewhere in some other hot spots there in that wider region, under Bush, under Obama, under Biden, because one of the things that Trump did, even in his first administration, was act decisively. But, what you would look at is you would look at a war kind of like, we were always in the same spot. We never really were allowed to do enough to not lose, right? We really, we had to do everything that we could to basically not lose. That's a different attitude than what Donald J. Trump has brought forward to for our military and, frankly, for our nation, where he always talks about, he gets tired of winning. His attitude is, we are going to go into something so decisively. And I think for any adversary, and now I'm really talking to the Chinese and to the Russians, the message really to all the adversaries of the United States is that we're willing to use unprecedented capabilities, and we're just done messing around. And we're not going to allow, essentially a psychopath in the regime from Tehran, from Iran, to continue to threaten the United States of America with, annihilation, nor to threaten, key allies and to act like this pariah. I mean, from the entire time, pretty much, that I was in the military up until today, the nation of Iran was a designated state sponsor of terrorism. And in the previous segment, we rattled off between the two of us the number of attacks that they conducted against U.S. military forces around the world, certainly in that region, and killed U.S. forces, and they never were held to account for them. So I just think that gone are the days of sort of what I would call failed regime changes, and capacity building. Trump is not going to, he's not going to have that. Trump is not going to have this business about going in there forever and start to build capacity. We will help the Iranian people, because the Iranian people are now emboldened. And I think that their morale has got to be skyrocketing, because I've talked to many Iranian friends that I have just in the last few days. Some of them are in the region, and some of them are here in the United States of America, and they weren't sure where Trump was going for about a week or so, and now they know. And now they know that the United States of America, the full weight of the United States, and when the President of the United States says, kind of hold on, folks, don't worry, you just keep fighting there, we'll be there for you. Well, guess what, folks? Trump, is a man of his word, and he's a man with a very, very decisive word as well. There's going to be a lot of complaining going on here in the States about, is this MAGA, is this, going to hurt MAGA, is this going to hurt America first? We can argue all that when it's said and done, and frankly, that'll be seen through the primaries and through the upcoming election next November. But for now, our country is fully engaged in a very, very difficult battle, very difficult conflict. I think that Donald Trump has it in his mind exactly what it is that he wants to achieve, when he wants to achieve it. And trust me, folks, that he is going to be, on top of this with his military commanders and, frankly, with his economic team and his diplomatic team, and Rubio and Scott Bessent and others on his team, to make sure that we get the things done and achieve and the goals that we need to achieve done. Trump is not going to fool around anymore with these long, drawn-out wars where we just have no idea what we're trying to do. So,
I completely agree. All right, I want to thank my good friend, General Michael Flynn, joining us at the last minute. God bless you, General, and your family. And check out the film, Flynn. You can find it anywhere.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to The Roger Stone Show. You can hear The Roger Stone Show Sunday afternoons at 3. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?
If you're looking to create, grow, and sustain your wealth, download and subscribe to the Pain Points of Wealth podcast at BeBullish.com with Bob, Ryan, and Chris Payne. It's your podcast for market insights, money tips, and real talk on the economy.
Download and subscribe
at BeBullish.com.
LifeLock, how can I help?
The IRS said I filed my return,
but I haven't.
1 in 4 tax-paying Americans has paid the price of identity fraud.
What do I do?
My refund, though.
I'm freaking out.
Don't worry, I can fix this.
LifeLock fixes identity theft guaranteed and gets your money back with up to $3 million in coverage.
I'm so relieved.
No problem. I'll be with you every step of the way.
1 in 4 was a fraud-paying American. Not anymore. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit LifeLock.com/podcast. Terms apply.